My question for the viewer is, what would you do if the lights outside of your home kept turning on at random, but every time you looked, there was no one there? This story happened when I was about 23 years old. I've always been the type of person who double checks the locks before bed. Living alone in a quiet neighborhood, I thought I was safe. I guess I should mention that this isn't the nicest neighborhood, but it wasn't a bad one either. I've always had a kinda paranoid personality, and living alone didn't make that any better. But having my own space was nice, and it felt rewarding since I didn't live with my parents anymore. But this story taught me that real life danger can happen to just about anyone, even if you think you're safe. It started one evening. I had recently installed motion censored lights outside of my house. I had put one in my backyard, one in the driveway, and one near the front porch. I figured they'd give me a peace of mind, but little did I know these would be the primary cause of my stress. My thought process was, if anyone came around at night, I'd know. At first, they did their job. A stray cat would pass through, and boom, the lights would snap on. Or the wind would rustle the bushes, and I'd catch the sudden flood of brightness through my blinds. It didn't bother me much, but then it started happening more often than I was hoping for, like way too often. I'd be sitting in the living room watching TV when the driveway light would suddenly flash on. I peeked through the blinds, but nothing was there, just an empty street. Later, the backyard light would go off, but again, nothing. I told myself it was probably just an animal, rabbits, raccoons, maybe a stray dog. But in the pit of my stomach, something felt off. Then one night, it got worse. Around 2 a.m., I was woken up by the front porch light snapping on. I dragged myself out of bed, annoyed, and peeked through the curtains. This time, I swear I saw something. Just a shadow moving across my yard. It was quick. Too quick to make out details, but definitely not an animal. My heart had sank and my mind started racing. I stood there for minutes, waiting, staring into the darkness. Eventually, the light went off again, and I didn't sleep the rest of the night. I couldn't stop thinking about what was possibly watching me. The next day, I went around to a couple of my neighbors' houses and asked them maybe if they had seen anything possibly, but they all gave me the same answer, and now my mind began racing because I couldn't make out what I saw last night. For the next week, the same thing kept happening. Lights going off at random hours. First it'd be the backyard, then the driveway, and then finally the porch. This seemed to always happen when the streets were empty and things were quiet. I started to feel like I was being watched. The breaking point came one Friday night though. I had just gone to bed when the backyard light had snapped on. I froze. I was staring at the ceiling. About a minute later, the driveway light came on. Then, another minute had passed, then the porch light came on. One after another, I got up and crept over to that window, and that's when I saw him. I grabbed my phone with shaking hands and dialed 911. Whispering to the operator that someone was outside my house. While I was on the line, I crept into my living room and peeked through the blinds. A man was standing in my yard, not moving, not walking, just standing there. His face was tilted upward toward the house like he was looking right at me through the window. The operator told me to stay inside. The police were on their way, but I could barely hear over the pounding of my heart. Suddenly, the lights went off again, leaving him in the complete darkness and me wondering where he's at now. I yanked the blind shut and ducked down on the floor, terrified to even breathe. Minutes later, I heard footsteps, slow, deliberate, moving across my porch. Then, the faint rattle of my front door handle. I whispered into my phone, "He's trying to get in." The operator kept telling me to stay calm, help was on the way, but every second felt like an hour. But finally, red and blue lights filled the street. I heard the crunch of tires as police pulled up. When I dared to peek outside, the man was gone. The cops searched the area, but nothing was found. No footprints, no signs of forced entry. They told me it was probably just some random trespasser. Maybe drunk, maybe lost. But I know what I saw, and I know it wasn't random, because the next morning when I went outside, I noticed something on the side of my house right under the motion censored light. There was a cigarette butt, freshly smoked. Someone had been standing there, watching. And to this day, I still don't know if they'll ever come back. I used to think I wasn't afraid of anything. Haunted houses, horror movies, jump scares. None of it ever really got to me. I like to believe that fear was just a reaction that you could honestly just train out of yourself. That belief, though, ended the night that I stepped through the gates of the McKamey Manor. I know what people say online, that it's not really a haunted house. It's a psychological endurance test, a legal torture chamber. I've read all the Reddit threads, watched all the interviews, even saw some videos of people crying, begging to leave, but I thought they were exaggerating. So when my friends dared me to sign up, I didn't hesitate. I filled out the form, passed the background check, and even made the video submission. I said I was ready, that I could handle anything, but I wasn't. The day of my tour, I met the organizer, a tall man with a calm, unsettling politeness. He smiled the whole time as he handed me the 40-page waiver. I thought he was joking when he said, "This covers everything from physical injuries to psychological trauma." I laughed. He didn't. He looked me straight in the eyes and said, "If you quit, you fail. You can tap out at any time, but once it starts, you want to." That was my first real chill of the day. Still, I signed it. My pride wouldn't let me back out now. When the experience started, I was blindfolded and led into what felt like a backyard. I could hear water running, a faint generator hum, and someone whispering inches from my ear. The air smelt like damp leaves and metal. Then someone grabbed the back of my neck. A voice hissed, "Welcome to McKamey Manor." And suddenly, everything was chaos. They pushed me into what felt like a small shed. Cold water sprayed over me, soaking all my clothes. My heart was pounding, but I tried to laugh it off. That was what I signed up for, right? But then, something changed. The noises stopped, the lights went out. All I could hear was breathing right behind me. I froze. I tried to say something, to ask what was happening, but before I could, hands gripped my shoulders and shoved me forward. My knees hit concrete. Something wet and sticky covered the floor. "Get up," a voice growled. But when I tried, someone yanked my blindfold off. The room was dimly lit. Red lights, like a dark room, chains hung from the ceiling. There were dirty tools on a table that looked far too real to be props. And standing in front of me were 3 people wearing masks. But these weren't ordinary masks. They were humans' faces. Old, decayed rubber molded into fake smiles. One of them leaned in close and whispered, "You wanted real fear, didn't you?" I nodded, too scared to speak. He smiled. "Then let's begin." The next few hours are a blur. They locked me in a freezer. They dragged me through mud. They screamed questions in my face I couldn't answer fast enough. Every time I thought it was over, it wasn't. At one point, I was sitting in total darkness, shivering when I heard a faint whisper. It sounded like my own voice, repeating the words, "I can handle anything," over and over again. Then I heard laughter, not loud, but soft, taunting, coming from a speaker right above me. I realized they'd recorded my video submission, the one where I said I wasn't afraid. They were using my own words to break me. I started to lose track of time. The constant disorientation, the screams, the dripping water, it all blended together every second. Every sound made me flinch. Then they started calling me by name. "Come on, Ethan. Don't you want to see what's next?" I hadn't told them my name when I arrived. That's when I began to panic. They led me into another room, one with a mirror, or what looked like a mirror. But as I got closer, I realized it wasn't my reflection. It was a screen, showing a live feed of me standing there, only I wasn't moving. The me on the screen tilted his head, smiled, and raised his hand to his lips. I stumbled backwards. The people behind me laughed. They kept repeating, "You said you wanted to meet yourself." I can't describe the feeling. It wasn't jump scare horror. It was deeper, like my mind was being peeled open, piece by piece. At some point, I finally said it. I quit. But they didn't stop, not right away. They made me beg. They made me scream it over and over until my voice cracked. When they finally pulled me out, I was shaking so hard I couldn't stand. The man from earlier, the one who made me sign the waiver, handed me a towel and a glass of water. He smiled, calm as ever. "Congratulations," he said. "You lasted 1 hour." 1 hour. It felt like days. That night, when I got home, I couldn't sleep. Every sound made me jump. Every shadow looked like someone watching me. I kept hearing that voice whispering, "You wanted real fear?" A few days later, I started having nightmares. Not of what I remember, but the things that didn't happen. Me standing in front of that screen again, my reflection smiling back, reaching through the glass. Sometimes I wake up in the middle of the night, convinced someone's standing in my room. I'll turn on the light and there's no one there. But once, I swear, I saw something move just as the light flicked on. It's been years now. People ask me if I'd ever go back, and I just laugh, because I can't walk past a mirror anymore without feeling like something on the other side is waiting for me. I tell them I survived the McKamey Manor, but sometimes, late at night, I wonder if part of me never left. I used to think with there being so many people that the movie theater would be a safe place. This story happened to me and my best friend about 10 years ago. We were 13, maybe 14 years old. Some of the details are a little hazy, but when you're a teenager, there aren't a lot of places you can go without parents breathing down your neck. For me and my best friend Jay, the movies were our only chance to get away. Pretty much when any new movie came out, you could expect us to be at theater like clockwork. One of our parents would drop us off. They also typically gave us money to get tickets and maybe a snack or two. We'd also sometimes pretend to be just a little older than we really were to get into some movies that we weren't allowed to see if they were rated R. It was our tradition, something normal, harmless. Neither of us could ever imagine something like this would happen to us. But one night, that theater stopped being safe. It was a Friday night in November that started like any other. I was maybe 14. Jay is about a year older than me, so let's pretend he's 15 right now. We were buzzing with the usual excitement of being out on our own. The air outside was sharp and cold, our breath fogging as we pushed through the glass doors into the glowing lobby. The smell of buttered popcorn hit instantly, mixing with that weird old carpet smell that theaters always have. We had to do one of our pretending to be older tricks because we were going to see that new movie, The Interview. As always, you could see the nerves in our faces because sometimes this trick works and sometimes we'd get caught. Luckily this time, the ticket guy looked like a teenager, so he didn't really care that we were sneaking into a rated R movie. Once we got past him, everything seemed to be flowing like natural. And for a while, it was perfect. We had got our snacks, I had a medium popcorn and some Twizzlers, while Jay got a flatbread pizza for himself. After that, we headed into our theater room. The previews rolled, the lights dimmed, and the massive screen drowned out all the world outside for 2 hours. Nothing existed but the glow of the movie and the happiness that we got to see a movie we couldn't wait to watch. For a bit, things were going great. Movie as usual pretty much. But something was off. I thought I was being paranoid maybe, but there it was again. I had noticed this guy a few rows down kept looking back and watching us for a few moments before turning around and facing the screen again. I didn't want to make any assumptions because maybe he was looking back for someone he came with, or maybe he was just people watching to look for reactions so he can laugh socially with the crowd. But when the credits started rolling, I noticed him still alone and no one had returned from the bathroom break or maybe even to get a snack or something. He was about 3 rows down, still completely still. No drink, no popcorn, no jacket thrown over the seat, just sitting there. Hands folded neatly in his lap. Most people left when the credits started. Families wrangling kids, couples holding hands, groups of teenagers rushing into the bathroom to beat the crowd. But not him. He didn't move. He didn't check his phone. He didn't even glance at his screen. His head was tilted slightly upward like he was listening at first. I didn't think much of it. I was just trying not to be paranoid and have a good time with Jay. For now, I just assumed maybe he liked sitting through the credits. But the moment Jay and I stood up, I felt it. That tingling feeling on the back of the neck as if you're being followed. I looked back and the man stood up too. We moved with the crowd, weaving toward the exit. I kept glancing back and every time I caught him in my peripheral vision, he wasn't close enough to touch us, but he was close enough to follow. "Dude," I whispered. I nudged Jay and said, "That guy's behind us." Jay shrugged it off. "So? He's probably just leaving too." I wanted to believe that. I really did, but the unease followed me into the lobby. The theater was still buzzing with people when we walked out. Families gathering near the arcade games, a couple of kids from our school playing air hockey, College kids lined up at the concession stands for refills before the second showing. We had stopped at the vending machines near the exit to wait for Jay's mom. She texted that she was about 15 minutes late. That's fine, we waited before. The man walked past us at first, moving toward the arcade games. He stood there, pretending to scroll on his phone. But he wasn't playing, he wasn't meeting anyone, and his eyes weren't on the screen. They were on us. Every time Jay laughed or shifted, the man's gaze followed. I tried to brush it off. Maybe I was imagining it. Maybe I was paranoid. But the longer we stood there, the more obvious it became. He wasn't watching anyone else, just us. The crowd thinned. The families left first, kids dragging their parents towards minivans. The college kids disappeared next, heading out in groups. Slowly, after the theater seemed quiet, that's when the man finally decided to move. He left the arcade area and walked back towards us. Not directly, just slowly, like he was taking his time. I grabbed Jay's arm. He's coming. Jay turned, but he looked annoyed with me. Bro, maybe he just wants a drink from the machine. But he didn't buy anything. He just stood near us, close enough that I could hear the faint sound of his breathing. And then, without looking directly at us, he spoke. Good movie, huh? His voice was calm. Too calm. We didn't answer. I remember Jay shifted awkwardly, pretending to check his phone. The man smiled faintly. You boys come here often? That was enough. Every instinct screamed at me to leave. I pulled Jay toward the exit. Let's just wait outside. We pushed through the doors into the night air. The cold hit instantly. But I didn't care. I just wanted distance. But when I glanced back, my stomach dropped. The man was following us. The parking lot was nearly empty now. A few scattered cars, their windows fogged from the cold. The bright floodlights buzzed overhead, casting long shadows across the asphalt. We walked fast, heading toward the front curb where our parents usually picked us up. The man trailed behind. Not close enough to make a scene, but not far enough away to lose him. I pulled out my phone and texted my mom, "Where are you? Please hurry." No reply. Jay tried his mom, straight to voicemail. That's when the man spoke again. You boys need a ride? My heart thudded in my chest. Jay shook his head quickly. No, our parents are coming. The man smiled wider this time. It's cold out here. I don't mind giving you a lift. I live close. The way he said it made my blood run cold, like he already knew where we lived. I tightened my grip on my phone. No thanks, I muttered. We picked up the pace, but so did he. Hey, he called after us, still calm, still smiling. Don't be rude, I'm just trying to help. Every step echoed against the pavement. His footsteps behind us grew louder, closer. I wanted to scream, but the words stuck in my throat. The theater door closed behind us with a heavy thud. We were all alone out here. Just us, the empty lot, and him. Then I heard it. The sudden quickening of his footsteps. He was closing in. We broke into a jog, sneakers slapping the asphalt, my chest burned. Every nerve screaming for me to run faster. Wait, the man called. His voice was sharper now. The fake friendliness cracking. I said I'd give you a ride. We didn't look back. Headlights swept across the lot. A minivan pulled in kinda fast. Brakes were squealing. Oh wait, it was Jay's mom. We sprinted to the curb as the door slid open. We dove inside, slamming it shut behind us. I looked back through the window. The man had stopped a few feet away, hands in his pockets, face hidden in the glare of the floodlights. He didn't shout, but he didn't argue. He just stood there, watching as the van pulled away. On the ride home, Jay's mom kept asking what happened. We stumbled through half the explanation, tripping over our words. She shook her head. You boys have to be careful. Not everyone out here has good intentions. I stared out the back window until the theater disappeared from sight, my heart still hammering. But what haunted me the most wasn't the chase. It was the look on his face as we pulled away. The calm, patient smile, like he wasn't worried he'd missed his chance. It was almost like he figured he'd see us again the next time another movie came out. After that, we decided to slow down our movie adventures, and eventually we just completely went to another theater. But till this day, I still don't forget that man's face, and every now and then, I can only think about if he's preying on other children possibly that do what Jay and I were doing.